From global boardrooms to cat film festivals, today's guest has a knack for saying yes to unusual opportunities and turning curiosity into a career superpower. Join me as I talk with Dan Friker about AI and HR, global perspectives, and why small businesses are poised to play big. This episode of The Rebel is brought to you by my book, Brand Jitsu. Most brands blend in. They don't mean to, but they do. After 25 years of helping people fix that, I wrote the playbook. It's called Brand Jitsu, Move Your Brand from Meh to Memorable. It'll show you how to shape your story so it hits and sticks. Grab a copy at your favorite bookstore or head to brandjitsu.com. Welcome to the Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargy, and somewhere across the world right now we're going to find out where Dan Friker is at. Dan, first off, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's we're catching the last of the summer season here in Minneapolis, and so just trying to get the last 6 weeks before, of course, the snow comes. So
very nice. And I like how you snuck in the fact that you're from Minneapolis. We kill two birds with one stone there.
Yes, I'm one of the few Americans that can actually talk hockey and mean it.
Nice. What? Okay, who's your team?
So this is a tough one. Right? Because originally I grew up in Chicago, right? Uh-huh. So I can still rattle off the starting lines of the Chicago Blackhawks, especially from the early 90s. Uh-huh. I did really like the Minnesota North Stars, and I think it just grades on a lot of Minnesotans when people refer to the Wild as an expansion team. Because, when you're one of the original six and then you move down to Dallas in an unceremonious way. So
yeah, that's fair. Amazing. Well, I'm happy to hear that. We were kindred spirits.
Yeah.
So, Dan, why don't you catch us up and just give us a quick little snapshot of what it is that's happening in Dan's life right now? Like, what's Dan's world like?
What is my world like? Well, I have trips to Las Vegas for a conference. I have a trip to New York City, trip to Houston. I have completed about a dozen different projects consulting on different types of AI and technologies that are being incorporated within the HR staffing space. I completed a workshop actually at Target Field, so where the Minnesota Twins play, where we actually invited about 30 companies. And it really was almost evenly divided, a third. Yeah. A third of those companies were Fortune 100 companies. A third were about Fortune 200 companies. And about a third were companies that I would say were between, let's just say 25 and 50 million.
Right.
And it was also a very interesting cross-section of, people within technology. So we had senior vice presidents in IT, we had CHROs, we had CEOs of businesses, all trying to make sense of what this new brave new world is like. So
wild.
Yeah, I have a very active August going into September.
Are you going to AI4 in Vegas?
I am not. I'm going to a different conference, but it's somewhat related. In fact, I would say AI, if it's not number one, it's definitely number two. It's an exciting HR conference.
Hey, that's awesome.
I am with my people.
That's awesome. Well, so I guess before we dive, into the Dan story, this is part of the Dan story clearly, but the Dan backstory. I'm curious to know how deep you are into AI and what influence it has in HR right now, and how you're making that mark. Like, I'm super curious because I also am, I want to say an early adopter, but I think an early adopter of AI. So I'm curious about what your journey is.
Yeah. So I would actually put my journey probably, early 2000s, and I'll kind of give you the explanation. So my undergraduate degree is actually in accounting.
Okay.
And then I went to grad school to the University of Minnesota, so the Carlson School of Management, where I actually have a master's in human resources and industrial relations, but my area of focus was actually on HR analytics. So this was at a time when you really had the evolution of data science, because what I was seeing in my day-to-day activity, because at the time, I had worked for Manpower Group for 20 years, working with some really large Fortune 100 companies globally in terms of designing workforce strategy, actually executing on that workforce strategy. So hiring people from blue collar, light industrial workers, all the way to IT, to technical folks. And what you really saw throughout the 2000s was all this data that companies had on their talent, was coming out of the file cabinets and going into databases,
Right.
and starting to kind of see like, okay, how do we actually make better data driven decisions around, how to staff companies? And when you think about in fact, in grad school, like the grad school project we worked on is how do you staff a hospital? Sounds
Right.
really basic until you actually kind of break down, like, if you do it wrong, it's very expensive and the hospital loses a lot of money. If you do it wrong, the other direction, you find yourself essentially not being able to provide the necessary care.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it is more intricate. So that really kind of started my journey around focusing on this human capital management space within, in fact, it's something called HRIS.
Okay.
Right. And there's all sorts of different types of, technology packages there.
Yeah.
And then, what started off in a bar, actually.
On the back of a napkin.
Yeah, well, it really was. It was about a year and a half ago, and was with some colleagues, and I was really kind of talking about kind of the things that I was seeing within the industry. So almost every one of these, not to belabor you with acronyms, but like some things called applicant tracking systems, ATS systems. I mean, this is what companies use when they go out there to try to find talent and bring them into the company.
Right.
Right. And every one of these tools started to just magically have these AI components, or the sales guys that were trying to, sell me or whatever, like, oh, we have an AI component.
Right.
But what was funny was no one really knew how to use it. I think people started to kind of hear about it, hear the buzzwords, and I started to kind of really get passionate about it because it was like the technology was advancing way faster than people's understanding on how to use it.
Right.
And what I was frustrated by was actually at this bar. I'm like, there has to be good case studies of people adopting this new technology to drive better outcomes.
Yeah.
And I was shocked to find that there really wasn't at the time. And it started this like funny little journey where I started to really engage with, companies and industry professionals and even some, writers, that kind of write on this topic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really kind of morphed into this, I guess you can call it like a little side hustle, to really kind of lean into this.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm proud to say that, and I think this really kind of fits with the rebel mindset, the people and the companies that I have started to see that are really advancing, incorporating AI into their processes.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of put some examples over here for a second. Like, yes, there's some great examples with, ExxonMobil and Hilton and Unilever and Walmart, but they've been on this journey for a decade, right?
Yeah.
But I'm seeing are really incredible usage that small, medium-sized businesses are starting to use to not just level the playing field, but really kind of take off.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So, and I guess just to back up or sidestep a sec, like what's the real world look like for these small to medium sized companies? Like, is it leveling it?
oh yeah. I mean, I can give you, what used to be out of reach or just cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Right. For a lot of companies. And I mean, we can almost play a game, like pick an industry. Like, if you have rental properties and you have Airbnb properties, right?
Yeah.
And, you suddenly are like, okay, when do I charge more, or what do I charge based on my property, the location, demand?
Yep.
Hilton, all these big boys, they've been using data science for surge pricing, for years.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, as a small little business, you can basically through AI get that same power, but either frankly for free or at just a minuscule amount of cost.
Wow.
Right. There was a real example. There was a guy that owns kind of a regional plumbing company here in the Twin Cities. And the CEO is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those guys that you can kind of pull aside and he can say, like, what's the difference between a house in Minneapolis and a house in St. Paul? And he can tell you kind of the literally the nuts and bolts of, like, things you have to look for. And but what I found interesting is the small companies that were showing up to my AI workshop came to the table with real business challenges. And his example was, I know plumbing. I can tell you, and he's got multiple locations throughout.
Yeah.
I don't know marketing. I've been in business for, almost 40 years. I have a stellar reputation with a better beat, but I'm being beaten by these other companies. Can I use AI to better market myself without spending a fortune? Because
Nice.
of course, you talk about Google ratings and everything else.
Yeah.
And the short answer is yes. So, what used to be the norm as recently as, this year, it's like now you can actually start to kind of create these bots and these agents
Yeah.
to, frankly, compete with the big boys.
Man, agentic workflows are so rad. It's
Yeah.
it's, it's such a game changer.
Yeah.
Huh.
And I think the other thing is, you know, this kind of speaks to the powers and pitfalls of AI driven change.
Yeah.
Right. And what's funny is you have some of the bigger companies, without naming names and getting myself in trouble.
Yeah.
They've actually at the CIO level have gone and basically said, look, we've invested in some AI tools.
Yeah.
Right. And they're now just kind of saying to their employees, you use them. The problem is two problems. Number
Yeah.
one is a lot of the time that some of the tools that they're picking are designed because they don't want their data to go to Alphabet, or they don't want their data to go
Yeah.
to, OpenAI with
Yeah.
ChatGPT. So they make these kind of closed group AI systems
Little
that no
bags.
one knows how to use.
Right.
And not to mention the fact that employees are probably using, ChatGPT on their phones, just not using the work computer, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. So that's their big fear. And oftentimes it's being driven by IT, which is fine because you can create a good IT solution.
Sure.
But the real power is actually coming from the functional categories.
Yeah.
Your sales
Absolutely.
team, your marketing team, your HR team to say, I have this problem. Can you fix fill in the blank?
Right.
So,
Amazing. Well, that's really cool. Let me ask you a question. Let's go back in time to I don't know, maybe it was 5 years ago, Dan. Maybe it was like 5-year-old Dan.
okay.
What is it like? It's not necessarily a what did you want to be when you grow up, unless this is it. But I'm curious, like, what made you? Because you're clearly cut from a different cloth than the status quo. You've chosen to zig when others zagged. Where did that happen, or what do you think was transformative for you?
I'm actually going to tie it directly to my grandfather.
Okay.
Growing up in Chicago, he was a component of my childcare. My folks were teachers, and so they,
Yeah.
drop them off to grandma and grandpa. Swiss German descent, right? So growing up in that culture, he was really passionate about, me going back to, visit friends and family in Europe. And I actually had two opportunities. So I did one in high school, and then the second one was my third year of college to
Yeah.
actually study abroad.
I love
And to
that.
me, that was really transformative, especially as an American,
Yeah.
because well, this was the 90s. And so
What?
but it was the program that I went through at the University of Minnesota was actually partly sponsored by the European Union. So
Okay.
I got to visit things like the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, the European Commission, the European Parliament, NATO,
Yeah.
and actually talk to people inside of those institutions.
Wow.
So it was more than just reading and learning about them, but actually going there and engaging.
Yeah.
And I think for me, what was really transformative was to really, look at the world differently, to kind of see how things were working, to kind of, it definitely itched a certain weird curiosity that frankly I didn't know I had.
Right.
And, so, when I, entered the workforce, again, I thought I was going to be an accountant until I realized I don't really like accounting. And almost through a weird series of events, I actually worked for a small little regional staffing company here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
That got me noticed with Manpower Group. And so they hired me on.
Yeah.
And again, 20 years later, but throughout my career, one of the things that was also transformative was to be promoted to a national director. And that was the first time that I started to really work with Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
Because in that national director role, I was responsible for North America, but I was now working directly with the other business units, from the UK to Germany to various offices in APAC, Latin America,
Yeah.
and being part of a team that was really looking to work with some major corporations in terms of what their workforce strategy is and was.
Wow.
And really kind of learning how do you take your business strategy and translate that into a people strategy.
I
Right.
love
and
that.
then kind of like, and then when I became a VP and suddenly I had to run teams, and I will tell you, I was an idiot. Right. Because if you really want to understand like what people think of Americans, just get on a Teams call or a conference call and be the American and tell a bunch of Brits, this is the strategy that we're going to do. And then you get to, get tsunamied with the British sarcasm of, we're eagerly anticipating this American solution to what we're doing here in the UK. Please carry on. You just feel how much you were like, this call is going to end. And I think because I failed hard at that, you go, okay, how do I motivate people to kind of march, in the direction that you need them to do, even though it's frankly an imperfect union.
Sure.
And it really helped me to kind of figure out, all right, how do you kind of build that global strategy, and how do you mirror that with, some of these clients that are, working with big Fortune 500, big Fortune 50 companies, they're not going to hold your hand.
Yeah.
Like they're going to expect that you understand their business, their challenges, every meeting you show up, that you're prepared. And, that taught me so much. So when I do engage with, small, medium-sized businesses, the challenges are the same. Just maybe the scope and scale are slightly different.
Yeah.
But same types of fears, anxieties, doubts. But I would actually argue that a lot of times mistakes are even bigger for your small to medium-sized companies.
Yeah.
So,
wow. How, and I'm just going to spoon feed this question because I already know the answer, I think, but how important is the global citizen view, traveling outside of where you're from? Even, it doesn't matter whether you're American traveling somewhere else, Canadian traveling somewhere else, UK, whatever, but that getting that global perspective, do you think, not just for business, but for life?
Well, I can give you a couple of examples. For me personally, I guess I'm pretty passionate that for me, it's critical.
Yeah.
Right. And hopefully you can kind of figure out, like, I really believe that.
Yeah.
Because I'm still of the belief today, and I know that there's some that differ on this, that extending outside of one solostopic view of the world, the self-contained, I think we have far crossed the chasm a long time ago, that I think to be competitive or to gain a competitive advantage, to kind of see how people are adopting and adapting to new products and services, I think is really critical to be successful. And if you are so insular, I don't see how you can maintain a competitive advantage, right? You might be in the short term, but I don't think that extends, even having, so for example, I had the benefit of working with Microsoft. My old company was actually probably one of the largest video games testing companies in North America.
What?
And very quietly, Manpower Group they have testing centers all over.
Wow.
And you have to understand that they divide their games into certain sections. So you have your sports games, you have your first person shooter games, and, and listening to the Microsoft executives, they say it like, look, they really do want to make games that all of God's children will play.
Right.
So they would hold us accountable of really building diverse teams, because they don't want games to be just played by a certain segment in a certain country. Although there were some comical examples of, like, when they were doing analyses, they're like, it turns out the Italians really just want to play FIFA games. Like, they have the data.
Classic.
But like, they truly want these games to be played by everyone. But I would say the same thing about like General Mills, which is a Minnesota-based company. They are keenly aware that some of their best products came from other locations, because, and they have to continue to adapt, to the changing tastes of people.
Interesting.
Right. And so I think, again, the applicability for even small businesses is there, because you can learn a lot by what other people are doing in other places.
What about you as a human? Like, do you think that I think clearly it has changed you. You said when you went to West Germany to study, that changed you, but
I think it gave me an appreciation of when you look, you study history, you just, these old books and everything else. And again, this is pre YouTube videos because I'm obsessed with YouTube videos. But really actually seeing these institutions and understanding kind of the criticality of why do we have these institutions in the first place, right? And then when you kind of start doing the math to say like, okay, why is it important for, I'll just say the United States or, the European Union or the IMF to be that lender of last resort, for example, right? Well, a lot of it comes down to like these major lessons that we learned from the Great Depression to multiple world wars, and whatever cost otherwise that you might kind of calculate that out to be, if you actually go to the other side of the ledger to say like, okay, what happens if this country's economic, situation fails?
Right.
I mean, it has ripple effects, especially in our current environment.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that was kind of the eye-opening experience to actually go there and talk to people and interact with and understand the why.
Yeah. Nice.
And then understand kind of those lessons that those in front of us have put out there.
Yeah.
Because I do believe the mantra that those that don't learn their history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes, sir. That is a fact. Where's your favorite place to visit?
That's a great question. Wow. You would think that would be off the top of my head. That is a really good question. Because usually if the first thought that pops in my mind, I'll just spit out. But I think like 3 came out like straight away.
That's cool. Yeah. Give me the top 3 then.
Well, I love Geneva. I hated the cost,
yeah.
But I think everything about, at least Geneva was great, not just in terms of food and the people and everything else, but even the institutions, the histories that was there.
Yeah.
I would also say the one that also kind of mixed in my head, I would say was either Tokyo or Singapore for kind of 2 different reasons, actually.
Yeah, I believe that.
I mean, Singapore, if you were to close your eyes and just, open them and I said you're in New York, at least for a couple of minutes, you'd probably believe it.
Yep.
Right. Very, and I don't mean to offend anyone from Singapore, but like it has a very kind of American Euro feel.
Yeah.
But then you start to kind of really see, because it's a kind of interesting history about, all the kind of peoples and cultures that kind of came together to make what Singapore is today. And it's a fantastic city. Tokyo, for almost the exact opposite reason. It is, still the country that still openly sells fax machines. It's a country that has reverence for history. Like to sign certain legal documents, you actually need to have this like little stamp.
The Hanko seal.
Yeah. And like, but yet some of the craziest, coolest technologies you've ever seen. So it's just, there's a lot to learn. And that's actually a good example too of interesting solostopic culture. Because they are not known to be huge into importing talent.
Sure.
Right. So a lot of their solutions that they've, come up with has really been because of, their aging population, which is one reason why it's like if you're walking around, you will never see like someone actually handing out a newspaper, because that's why they have vending machines, because it's just easier to have a machine do it than a human being. Wow. One of the reasons why you see all these, the advancements in robotics is because, that's also because they're trying to take care of an aging population. So it's like when you start to kind of see this, but then all you have to do is just go, 30 minutes by their bullet train, and you're in the middle of like unkept, beautiful rural Japan. So it's just, it's such a crazy, cool mixture. And I can probably spend the rest of my life talking about those places. So, and apologies because I feel like I have friends in like many cities around the world. So someone's going to probably blow me up saying, how come you didn't mention like, Belfast? So
sure. You definitely want to mention Belfast. Just
I have friends and family around Belfast, and so it has a certain place in my heart too. So
outstanding. Oh boy. Well, that's really cool. I love meeting global citizens. I think that it's one of those things that if you've never left the city, the state or province or the country that you've been brought up in, you're doing yourself a disservice. You have to go see the world because it's magical and so different, and it gives you a whole new perspective when you come back. Do you cook?
Not well, but the grace of God, I'm married an Italian American woman from Providence, Rhode Island, and she is without a doubt one of the best cooks, and it's awesome.
Now she's obviously not a one-trick pony just doing
No.
Italian food, but does she do some killer Italian?
Yes and yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Like she's legit one of the best cooks, and across multiple genres. And
Love it.
in fact, I can even relate it to our last comment there a second ago. One of my favorite things, not just here in my home, but like even traveling abroad, is when you're hanging out with a local and they're like, where do you want to eat? And I'm like, no, please take me to one of your favorite places.
Oh, I love that.
And whatever they put in front of you, I can seriously say in most continents I've traveled around the world, it's awesome.
You are brave.
Right? Well, there is one exception. I will freely admit I don't eat insects, which in certain places.
That's a thing, yeah.
It was a persistent question when I was in Thailand. Are you sure you don't want to try this? I'm like, I'm good.
I have heard the crickets are pretty damn good.
Oh, they make them look delectable, especially with the chocolate and everything else. But I just
couldn't get there. That's cool. What's your favorite kind of music, Dan?
Well, so growing up in Chicago, I'm definitely still a 90s guy. So like if you look at my Spotify list, you're still going to probably see a lot of like everything from Smashing Pumpkins to Pearl Jam to, your Dave Matthews. But to this day, if I'm doing a bunch of work, right. And I just have to kind of go heads down and just plow through reports or whatever. It's usually these earphones and probably some semblance of like techno. Because for me, I can just put that in the background.
Yeah, I understand that. When I used to do coding, that'd be the thing. It would just be nonstop, hours at end.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Deep cuts. So it's a weird question, but what's the one thing that you do for Dan? Like, what's the I call it a guilty pleasure, but I don't want to color it as you'd have to be guilty about it. But what's the thing that you do just for you?
That's probably another great question. I have a 13-year-old daughter, right? Okay. And it has really been interesting about how my life has kind of, moved, into really supporting her variety of activities. And she is a musician. That was not something that I was granted as a superpower. And so the fact that I think she's up to 5 different instruments.
Oh my God.
She is a really accomplished swimmer. So we were just at Minnesota State Finals a couple of weeks ago, and she continues to do a great job there.
Damn.
But I, outside of kind of doing, so if I'm not working, I'm probably doing some, related thing with my daughter. But I will tell you, in fact, there's multiple music festivals coming to the Twin Cities. In fact, Farm Aid is coming here shortly. Oh. So you've got bands that really kind of run the gamut from Dave Matthews to Kenny Chesney to, wow. So get me to a cool music festival, and I'm pretty happy.
Right on. Oh my God. What's your favorite street in Minneapolis?
I'm actually going to go. Ooh. Okay. There's 2. I'll tell you the 2.
Okay.
So there's Washington Avenue. Oh, and what's interesting about Washington Avenue, twofold. In the 90s, Washington Avenue was not necessarily a place that I would recommend. If I didn't like you, I'd say, yeah, go to Washington Avenue. But like it was a turn of the century part of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis that was an industrial heart. It's, where you had a lot of Germans, a lot of Irish, you had a lot of breweries, and then it kind of went into disrepair, if you will. And now a lot of those buildings have kind of been transformed into everything from housing to like even the Target Field where the Minnesota Twins play and Target Center, which is where the Minnesota Timberwolves play. That whole area is kind of, where you're going to find great restaurants, breweries, it's all there. It's all very walkable.
Gastropubs.
It's all like pretty much right along the Mississippi. But I will tell you, there's another area that I consider to be a little bit more of a deep cut. So there's a street called St. Anthony, Main, or Main Street.
Okay.
And that is one of the oldest areas of Minneapolis. And it's literally right along the river. And it's kind of the same thing. And so it has really been revitalized.
Cool.
As a matter of fact, can't believe I'm going to say this publicly. My wife and I not only had a great dinner last weekend at the St. Anthony, Maine, we went to a cat film festival.
A cat film? Like
festival.
cats?
It
About
was a
cats.
film festival where they had the best cat videos, and shockingly, it was more entertaining than it was shockingly entertaining.
There is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm gonna give you a quick little pro tip here. If you're a cat person, it could just be that you're not a cat person, you're just a cat video person. But my girlfriend Jennifer, she wrote a book of cat poetry called An Ode to Myself, which was written by her cat. Which I'll give her a shameless plug. Go to jennifermclean.ca and pick up her book, An Ode to Myself.
When I grew up a dog person, and when I started dating my now wife, but at the time, she had a cat, and then now we have two cats, and they they are always in the background, and
Dude, that's amazing. A cat film festival. I love it. That is awesome. So let me throw this at you. So you're walking down Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
You're beside the river. It doesn't matter what side it's on, but you're doing your thing. You're doing the Dave stuff. You're by yourself, and you're just in your head, and you're thinking to yourself, "Oh man, I just wish the world knew this one thing." What is the one thing that you wish the world knew?
Keeping curiosity alive.
Yes, sir.
I mean, in fact, everything that we talked about today, from being pulled into AI because of a conversation at a bar, to going to a new geography, new place, to listening to new music, going to film festivals that I never thought I'd go to, and, I think if people understood or leaned into that curiosity, because it took me a long time to realize that a lot of people, and I don't know if it's because of age, I don't know if it's because of their upbringing or just kind of their interesting circumstances, but curiosity gives them anxiety, right? Like going outside of the norm, or, potentially going something that they've established some kind of process, gives them a certain amount of fear of failure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you see this in in terms of what they eat, what they drink, in music they listen to, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think your exact example, because again, if it wasn't for my wife, who's like, I think this is going to sound like, this is going to be fun. And it was, and so if there is the one thing that I think people can take in their personal and professional lives, that would be it.
Love that. Oh, that is so great. Are you a car guy, motorcycle guy, electronic scooter guy, unicycle, bicycle? Like, what's your favorite mode of transportation?
Okay, well, I had motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
I sold my last motorcycle. I had multiple throughout my life. I sold my last one to help pay for my wife's engagement ring, and have not had one since. I've owned 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that I have a daughter, I mean, I've ridden them. Friends have bikes, everything else. I just can't. When you live in a city environment, you are kind of playing roulette.
Oh, sure.
But I would say, so the vehicle that I actually drive is a Ford Mustang Mach-E. So I do have an electric car. My wife does not. So we have one gas, one electric. Which, if you
how do you like that Mustang E? Like, does it have a sound? Like, did they like create a Mustang sound for the electronic, for the E car? Like,
the answer is yes. There is a button you can hit that will recreate the sound of a Mustang, gas-powered Mustang. I turn that off.
Okay.
But this is another indication of me. When I was looking at getting an EV, I did a fair amount of research, and I was really kind of going back and forth between the Tesla Model X, the Tesla Model Y.
Yeah.
This was the second year that the Mach-E had come out, and I think for me it was really kind of I went forward by a nose. And I think I just leaned towards the Ford simply because of some of the fit and finish things.
Yeah.
This was before Tesla became a political statement. But at the end of the day, it is where I went to, and it's completely exceeded my expectations.
Wow.
So,
is it rear wheel, all wheel, front wheel?
So I did get the all wheel drive. I think it does come standard in a rear wheel drive configuration.
Yeah.
But again, if you live in the north and you know you're going to get snow, and we
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
you think about what it's going to be like driving in January, February, March.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool. But okay, that's awesome. Uh, that's great. Would you? How much mileage do you get on a charge? Like, is it annoying to you, especially in the winter, or is it fine for your commute?
so it's fine for my commute. It is constantly a education in physics. Um, it really is, because like if you have it fully charged, I have extended range. So
Yeah.
it's about 300 miles,
Okay.
but it's very similar to like a gas car, that if you are driving aggressively, your distance is going to shrink.
Right.
And so like there is a kind of a dashboard that you have, and it's constantly calculating where you are to charge and where, like,
Yeah.
where you need to be. And I would definitely say, at least in Minnesota, not necessarily the case in places like North, South Dakota, but at least in Minnesota, there's plenty of places to, find charging stations.
Yeah.
And I would say even pervasive in the Midwest as well. I know in places like California, it's become almost ubiquitous.
Yeah.
I do actually have a home charger as well. So yeah, it's, for the use cases that we use it for as a family. Yeah. No, if I was doing it like a cross country trip going from Minneapolis to Las Vegas, I don't know, I might go on the gas on that one. So
Now it doesn't do autonomous driving, right? Like not like the Tesla.
semi-autonomous.
Okay.
So I do actually. So you talk about AI and applicability.
Yeah.
In fact, that was one of the first practical applications to visual recognition. Was really combining LiDAR, the visual, and then even GPS mapping.
Yeah.
To provide autonomous driving vehicles. At least in the United States, Tesla went bold with their self-driving vehicles, to the point where you can literally hit a button and drive yourself to the bar and back and go in the back seat. And some people did and got in car accidents, and it's a problem.
Yeah.
But with the Ford system, at least, as you're driving, I can take full hands off, and there's little infrared things that's looking at my face. And so if I look left or right for more than, I think it's like 5 seconds, it will start beeping and be like,
pay attention.
You take the wheel. So,
but
they continue to make tweaks to it, which would make sense.
That's really cool. I love the future. It's a really, really wild place. My son ended up getting a Tesla Y, and he took me out autonomous driving, and I was shocked by it. It was, it's really quite something. And funny enough, he's the one that got me into AI. He was trying to get me in. He was like, got invited to OpenAI's open beta in 2020, and he was like, "Dad, you got to get in on this." And I'm just like, And eventually, I was like, I just dove right in, and I love it. I have another question for you, and that is, what's on your bucket list that you haven't done yet?
Wow. Actually, I'll tell you, from a personal perspective. So having lived in Germany and having friends from the north to south to east to west in Germany, my wife has been regaled by stories for years. Yeah. So I would actually love to take my family back over to Germany and actually show them what I call my Germany, right? And some of the places that I lived, which I lived in a town called Freiburg, which is about maybe an hour north, give or take, from Basel, Switzerland, an hour east of Alsace, France. So it's in this little area that you can hit multiple countries, and you're at the foothills so cool. of the Black Forest and the Alps. Because I love to ski, my wife loves to ski, my family loves to ski. So although yes, I've been there, I would want to show them what I experienced, because they've heard all the crazy stories. Yeah. And yeah, I think that is taking my family out there. That's on my bucket list. So
that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear those stories when you get back. There's these people, Dan, out in the world, and I call them rebels in waiting. And these are the people who are about to do a thing, or maybe they're in the midst of doing the thing. They're curious, but they're not sure what that next step should be, or they're looking for some encouragement or some concepts. So what would be your advice to these rebels in waiting for how they might take that next step, whatever that step might be?
I think I would first tell them, take some time, take some time to be quiet. And really what I mean by that is like, really, I'm shocked by how many times I talk to people and I say, like, have you really just sat down for an hour, something as simple as an hour, to think about yourself?
Wow.
And I would say the vast majority of people are like, it's never even occurred to me to do that. It's like, wait a minute, you think about everything else,
Yeah.
but like really think about yourself, and then really just start asking yourself, start with something small. Start with something that gets you into that first step towards whatever you're curious about, right? And then I would say, ask yourself, what would that look like after 1 year, and then 3 years, and then 5 years?
Yeah.
And then really kind of make that a process. Because I think what gets people discouraged, and I'm saying this from a huge place of empathy, by the way,
Yeah.
that you're going to have setbacks. Before there can be victory, you will have setbacks. And so therefore, if you start to kind of map it out and you start to celebrate those incremental successes,
Yeah.
and you start learning from those failures, like on this very show, I looked right in the camera and actually called myself an idiot because I was trying to not be that American that, leans in and tells other people and cultures what to do. But I even knew it in the moment that I would likely fail before I start to get success. And so take some time to be quiet, focus on what even just a simple plan could look like. And that's the thing. It's going to start simple. But as you continue to evolve, as you continue to make these necessary adjustments, I think that's, there's never going to be the perfect time to take a leap. So I think if you just do those like really simple incremental things, and that's going to mean different things for other people and, based on what their interests and curiosities are. But I will tell you, nothing hurts my heart more than to talk to someone, either in my personal life or professional life, that maybe had a passion or a curiosity and they've never indulged in even making a step in that direction.
Love that. That's an outstanding answer. Thank you. And a follow-up question, I guess, to that is like, what's your relationship with failure? Like, is it something that you stress about, or something that you embrace, something that you realize is a necessity? Like, what is your relationship?
if we were on Facebook, it would be called "It's Complicated." I would say, all things being equal, I do my best to try to embrace failure, and I think the older one gets, the bigger ego, becomes. But I would not be where I am today, personally or professionally, had it not been for a litany of failure. And even leaving Manpower Group after 20 years,
it's a big step.
No idea I was going to work there for 20 years.
Yeah.
But about every 3 to 4 years, I was either getting promoted or moving over to another, division or group, and then just kind of had that way. And I was really at a critical crossroads, and a headhunter called me up to take on, a CEO job in North America for a smaller company. The safe thing for me would have been to stay.
Right.
And I had known for quite some time that I wanted to kind of, get some new experiences and do new things. And so I took the leap. But it wasn't something that I just did haphazardly. It was part of a bigger plan. And Manpower Group was great because it helped me to indulge my global passions.
Yeah.
They even helped to pay for my grad school. So like,
Nice.
they were a great company for me in terms of, my personal professional development.
Yeah.
So there's not a knock on them whatsoever, but it really was, for me, at my core, it was an opportunity to see something new and different and really explore to where I am today.
I love that. Dan, where can people connect with you?
Well, unfortunately, I wish I could tell you that I have a YouTube channel and a website. I don't, but you can find me on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Just under Dan Friker, Friker, no C. Yeah. And yeah, I even just doing podcasts like this show.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and so I've given everything from career advice to even conversations around how the company's using AI. So yeah,
Love it.
Don't hesitate to reach out.
Amazing. Dan, this has been such an amazing time. I've enjoyed every moment speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode. Hey, if you're an artist, scientist, entrepreneur, or business owner who wants a smooth and proven method to find, shape, and share your story with the world, head on over to brandjitsu.com and order a copy of my book, Brand Jitsu, Move Your Brand from Meh to Memorable. I've been your host, Michael Dargy, and this has been the Rebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, head on over to therebelrebelpodcast.com and fill out the guest request form. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.